Yeah, I mean, I think the mentoring thing is vitally important, and I think what needs to happen is that we need to be far more intentional about it. I mean, it has to be visible, tangible, credible mentoring. It can't be token, and it can't be infrequent as so often happens. I mean,
one person mentoring a big group, it's different from one-on-one mentoring. So I find it easier for me if it's one-to-one, because you get a lot more and you have time with that person, with the mentor, to ask questions or just be more open with what you don't understand.
And Duncan, he mentored 4 boys, and he also mentored a 5th boy whose father was in prison for a group called Pillars. And it wasn't like he went through some extreme course learning how to mentor. He just naturally sort of got alongside these boys, became their friends, but in such a way as they still owed him, they gave him respect. And they would come to him, because these boys didn't have very good father figures. And one boy in particular disappeared off the youth group radar for over a year. He turns back up in the office one day, a bit shaky, and he refused to leave, just sat there grunting and making small talk. Eventually it came out he was about to go into hospital for an operation. He was pretty scared. And so I rang up Duncan. Duncan left work early, comes around, picks this guy up, takes him out for a meal, they go for a bike ride and what have you, and that guy came back to church, and it was getting alongside him that made this guy, it brought him back to church. It wasn't the flashy worship, it wasn't the extreme camps we did every second holidays or whatever. It was a one-on-one relationship with an older male who was a Christian and was a really good influence into him. So
the thing with Pane is, and I discovered this sort of more towards the end of our relationship, is she genuinely wants, or honestly, truthfully and faithfully wants what God wants for me. And she just shares her own journey, and I take that and I compare it to myself. I sort of reconcile our similarities, and then in an expert or motherly sort of a way, in a teaching sort of a way, she'll share the gospel or the word, and it's then I think, oh yeah, there's kaha and substance behind what she's saying. Our relationship's not in the church, it's in my life. Yeah. And it's in my family's life, not as personally, but it's aware of my family, it's aware of my situations, my personal situations, my professional ones, my educational ones. It's based on honesty. So I can reveal anything to her, and I can trust in what she'll do with it, and I can trust that I'll be counselled by it. Yeah, the relationship, and vice versa, but probably more on my side. And in saying that, that's what I want for our young people, for the young people who have chosen to be a part of our youth, rōwhai. It's not just as a part of the group or a group that meets, but part of their lives in whatever decisions they're going to make.
We need to constantly be challenged by the Commission and by our own discipleship to ask how much of our week, how much of our weekend is being given to youth ministry and children. When I go to a parish on Sunday morning, it's very easy for me to drift into conversations with the wardens, to chat with the vicar, to talk with vestry people. I've been challenged by young people to say, why don't you make your first priority in the cup of tea after the service the youngest person in the room, and go there and spend time. And I find when I do that, it changes the way my parish visit occurs. I'm refreshed, I get another angle, it's usually a very joyful and enjoyable experience, and it changes the way I relate to the wardens, the vestry people and the vicar after that. The young people or the children are quite surprised that I want to do that. Sometimes they end up sitting cross-legged on the floor with Play-Doh. Sometimes they end up having a conversation with a young person who's felt isolated in youth ministry. Sometimes I get a major challenge or refreshment to the way I think about mission. So that's just a small example